Welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. We're really trying to cut through the noise today to understand what looks like one of the most significant shifts, perhaps, in global military power right now. Three nations just shocked the world. India, Algeria, and Ethiopia all saying yes to Russia's stealth fighter, the Su-57.
That's right, a major development.
While the West backs the F-35, these countries are betting on Moscow's jet faster, cheaper, and built to rival America's best. But what made them choose the Su-57? Is this about technology or maybe a shift in global power?
It's likely a mix of both,
Stay with us because this fighter jet isn't just changing air warfare, it's redrawing the world's alliances. So our mission today really is to unpack the source material around the Su-57's global ambitions. We want to know what these negotiations, especially with a, let's say, demanding customer like India, what they reveal about the changing defense landscape, and maybe how future major conflicts might even be fought.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is how quickly the Su-57, the one NATO calls Felon, has, well, it seems to have accelerated its transition. It went from what looked like a troubled development program to becoming a major geopolitical tool.
Right.
Russia is currently pouring resources into speeding up serial production. They're aiming for, I think, there's 76 aircraft delivered by 2027.
76 by 2027, that's quite aggressive.
It is. And that timeline, it signals this isn't just, a technological statement. It feels like the foundation of their long-term plan to compete globally, compete with the F-22 and F-35 fleets.
Okay, so when we talk about competing, especially for export dollars, the conversation shifts, doesn't it? Away from just pure tech specs.
Absolutely.
Towards, well, affordability and, frankly, political feasibility. For nations outside the Western orbit, this plane seems to offer a clear appeal. Price and politics, basically.
Exactly. And the price difference, the sticker price, it's really staggering. That seems to be Russia's main strategic lever here. The export variant, the Su-57E, it's estimated somewhere between $35 and $40 million per unit.
35 to 40 million, okay.
Now compare that to the F-35. You're looking at roughly $80 to $110 million per jet, sometimes more depending on the package.
Wow.
So for any nation with, let's say, a constrained budget, one maybe facing potential sanctions, that initial, $50 million plus saving per plane, it's almost impossible to ignore.
That is a massive difference. But, here's where I have to be a bit skeptical, just based on historical data. Initial price is one thing, right?
Sure.
But operating costs is another. Aren't Russian jets often, criticized for needing more intense maintenance? Could that maybe erase that upfront saving over the jet's lifetime?
That's a really important point to consider, yeah. Because historically, Western support packages, they've often been seen as, let's say, cleaner or more comprehensive.
Yeah.
However, the source material suggests Russia is trying to offset this perceived risk. They're offering pretty massive technology transfer deals, co-production too, we can get into that.
Okay.
They're essentially trading maybe higher long-term support costs, or maybe just a different kind of support cost, for giving the customer deep local control and, crucially, cheaper spares production locally. And for many export customers, that trade-off, that control is actually far more appealing.
Okay, so local control versus maybe a smoother ride. That makes sense. So if the price is the strategic carrot, what's the technical core? What are they actually buying? We hear about stealth, sure, but also this super agility. What does that mean?
Technically, yeah, it's a heavy dual-engine fighter, built for speed, but also maneuverability. That super agility comes from its 3D vector thrust nozzles.
3D thrust vectoring. Okay.
Right. It allows for these extreme post-stall maneuvers, things that a Western fifth-gen fighter like the F-35, which really prioritizes pure stealth, it just can't replicate those moves. It's also built to be fast, speeds over Mach 2, and a sustained cruise, apparently, of Mach 1.6.
And its reach, how far can it go?
Well, the aircraft has a pretty formidable combat radius. Sources say around 3,500 kilometers on internal fuel.
3,500 kilometers. That's significant.
It is. It gives it deep strike capability, which is necessary for these complex multi-domain conflict scenarios everyone's talking about. But the real, maybe high-value package, the thing that gets customers looking towards the future, is its planned integration with the S-70 Okhotnik, the combat drone.
Right, the drone integration. We hear that term a lot. But what does that human-machine teaming actually look like in combat? How does having a drone wingman fundamentally change the mission for a fifth-gen fighter like this?
So the way it's envisioned, the Su-57 operates as the command node. Yep. The pilot is directing things. And it uses the S-70 Okhotnik drone basically as a loyal wingman. and maybe even a sacrificial shield, depending on the mission.
A shield, so send it in first.
Potentially. The drone can fly ahead. It can conduct electronic warfare, EW attacks, jam enemy systems, maybe even use swarm tactics to overwhelm or saturate dense air defenses. So you see the difference. Where an F-35 is designed primarily to penetrate defenses using its low observability, its stealth.
Right, sneak in.
Yeah. The Su-57 package seems designed to defeat those defenses using a combination of speed, electronic attack saturation, and that human-machine cooperation. Just a very different tactical philosophy.
Interesting. Okay, let's pivot then to the geostrategic scorecard, maybe the early wins before we get to the big one, India. Our sources seem to confirm some crucial early successes, particularly in Africa, Algeria, for instance. That reflects its long-term reliance on Russian platforms, right? They're believed to be the first export customer, planning for, 12, 14 jets?
Around a dozen, yeah. That seems to be the number floating around. And this acquisition is critical. It really signals Moscow's commitment to expanding influence in North Africa, a traditional sphere for them. We're also seeing Ethiopia showing pretty keen interest, mostly it seems, to balance regional security competition there in the Horn of Africa.
Right.
So Moscow is explicitly using the Su-57E, the export version, as a major tool of defense diplomacy. In North Africa, the Caucasus, the Gulf, they're targeting specific regions.
And what's the common thread, do you think, among these early buyers or potential buyers? Why are they leaning towards the Su-57 instead of, say, trying to get the F-35?
I think it boils down to strategic autonomy. That seems key. Buying Western systems, especially something as sensitive and, frankly, integrated as the F-35, it often comes with incredibly stringent political conditions.
The strings attached.
Exactly. End-user agreements, sometimes even restrictions on how the platform can actually be used in a conflict. Nations like Algeria, Ethiopia, they want these high-end 5th-gen capabilities, but without the baggage, let's say, of Western oversight, or the constant threat of sanctions if they step out of line. The Su-57 represents a path, a proven one perhaps from their view, to get serious capability while asserting their strategic independence.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly then for the really big one, India. This feels like both the biggest opportunity and maybe the biggest challenge for Russia in the global arms market right now.
Absolutely.
If they pull this off, it could secure Russia's aerospace market position for decades. But if they fail...
This is the truly fascinating geopolitical test, I agree. Because India isn't just coming in as a customer. They're positioning themselves as a demanding partner. And the whole deal hinges on this, well, breathtaking condition they've laid down. India says it will only purchase the Su-57E if Russia agrees to rip out the original Russian radar, the N-036 Bayelka ISO radar, and replace it with India's own locally made ISA-GAN radars. Specifically, they're naming the Udam and Virupaksha systems.
Wait a minute. A major client is telling the supplier of its flagship stealth fighter that the core sensor, the thing that lets it see and fight, the radar, it's just not up to standard.
Pretty much, yeah.
That level of confidence, maybe bordering on arrogance from India's side, it's extraordinary.
What's the technical justification? Why are they making such an aggressive demand?
It's rooted in a fundamental technological leap, or at least what India perceives as a leap they've made. The Russian N-036 Bayelka radar, it's based on gallium arsenide technology.
JANTs.
Okay. The older standard.
Well, it's been the industry standard for a long time in high-frequency microelectronics. It's very capable. However, India has made massive investments, really pushed hard in developing radars based on gallium nitride.
GaN. Okay, so why is GaN seen as the new gold standard for fighter radars? What's the difference?
GaN is considered, well, pretty revolutionary by radar engineers because it provides significantly higher beam power. That translates to longer detection ranges compared to JAWS systems of similar size. It's also inherently more energy efficient, and crucially, it has superior thermal performance. It can run hotter, longer, without degrading.
So better power, better range, runs cooler, or handles heat better?
In essence, yes. And Indian defense experts, according to the sources, they've been very clear. They believe the Russian gas systems, while maybe good, simply do not reach the level of what their own local GaN industry can now produce. Right. India is essentially asserting technological leadership, or at least parity, in this absolutely critical sensing domain.
But this isn't just a technical debate over semiconductor materials, is it? This feels much bigger. This is a sovereignty showdown.
Absolutely.
This demand seems tied directly to India's big national push, the Atmanirbhar Bharat policy, self-reliance.
That's exactly it.
They're signaling loud and clear that they won't just accept external systems as automatically superior anymore. especially not when it comes to the really sensitive stuff like sensors and electronic warfare suites.
Precisely. And that aggressive stance, it's born from some painful recent history. Specifically, the, let's call it unfortunate, episode involving France and the Rafale fighter jet deal. Understanding the context is absolutely crucial to grasping India's current resolve on the Su-57.
Okay, tell us more about the Rafale situation, because if that failure is driving this demand on Russia, we need to understand what went wrong there.
Well, India needed, or rather demanded, source code freedom for the Rafale. They wanted their local defense industry to be able to integrate Indian-made weapons, like their Astra Beyond Visual Range missiles, onto the platform seamlessly.
Makes sense. Integrate local weapons onto the new jet.
Right. But France repeatedly refused to share the source code for critical systems, notably the Thales RBE-2 radar and the core mission computers, the brain of the aircraft.
So France just said no to opening up the code.
They did. And that refusal meant India was effectively locked out of modifying the aircraft's core functions at a deep level. They couldn't easily or efficiently integrate their own sophisticated domestic systems. It basically undermined the entire goal of self-reliance for that particular integration aspect. So India's defense establishment, they learned a very bitter lesson. If you don't control the source code, you don't truly control your aircraft's operational future or its upgrade path.
Got it.
India is now making it crystal clear with the Su-57 deal. This will not happen again. They demand control over the platform's electronic brain, starting with the radar.
And they're leveraging their position, aren't they? They know they're one of Russia's largest, most important weapons customers.
Hugely important.
And they know Moscow is under intense pressure from Western sanctions, the ongoing war. Russia really cannot afford to lose this deal. It feels like geopolitical hardball at its absolute finest.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which forces us now to look at Russia's response. Because given these existential stakes for them maintaining credibility as a global aerospace power, securing vital export income, Moscow has apparently had to make concessions. Concessions that sources describe as truly unprecedented in the history of Russian arms sales.
Unprecedented. Okay, what are those specific concessions then? What's Russia putting on the table?
The most critical one, the headline grabber, is offering source code freedom. The very thing France refused to give on the Rafale.
Wow. So they're actually saying yes to opening up the system.
It appears so. This explicitly allows India to integrate its local systems, not just the GAN radars we discussed, but also things like the Astra BVR missiles, and crucially, their own domestically developed mission computers. Furthermore, Russia has apparently offered extensive co-production and technology transfer. They plan to leverage India's existing infrastructure, specifically that massive production line they already have for assembling the Su-30 MKI fighter.
That's a huge existing facility, so build the Su-57 there too.
That seems to be the proposal. It's a remarkable adaptation, really. Russia is showing a willingness to compromise on technological secrecy, something they usually guard very closely, in order to secure this strategic alliance and the sale.
And it just raises this pivotal question. Is this the new global defense standard? Are we entering an era where suppliers have to concede technological sovereignty, give up the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, to the buyer?
That really is the central geopolitical test here. If India actually succeeds in integrating its advanced GAN radar into the Su-57 platform, it sets a massive global precedent. Future arms deals, especially for high-end platforms, might be defined not just by who has the best hardware on paper, but by which supplier is willing to provide the necessary keys, the source code, the control to the customer.
Right.
This push we're seeing from India for independence and diversification, they're balancing Russian gear with French, American, Israeli systems. It's fundamentally redrawing global alliances, moving away from simple binary supplier dependence. It's a shift towards maybe true multipolar strategic autonomy for these regional powers.
Okay, let's bring this back then to our initial point. What does all this mean for future conflict? If Russia does manage to get these Su-57 fleets operational, both domestically and with export partners, what is their intended role, say, against advanced NATO assets?
Well, according to Russian strategic thinking described in some sources, they view their growing Su-57 fleet, including the export variants, as the precursor strike component in any potential future major conflict.
Precursor strike component. Okay, define that for us. What does that term actually mean? What does it target?
It means these aircraft are tasked with hitting the most difficult, highest value targets before the main conventional fight really begins. Think of it as kicking down the door. This includes high-value airborne assets, particularly AirCS, the airborne warning and control system aircraft. the eyes and ears of an enemy air force. Knocking those out first is critical.
Blinding the enemy.
Exactly. It also targets key command and control centers on the ground, critical logistics nodes, maybe hardened air defense installations, things you need to take out early. And they plan to use the Su-57's speed, its stealth features, however effective they may be, and the saturation of tactics involving the S-70 drones we talked about to achieve that deep penetration needed for these precursor strikes.
Okay.
So the success or failure of the Su-57's export program, particularly this India deal, is therefore directly tied to Russia's perceived ability to maintain strategic competition, for the next few decades.
Yeah.
It's about future credibility.
So if we really look at the core of this entire situation, whether it's Algeria buying a degree of autonomy or India demanding local technology integration, the real friction point, it seems, isn't just about whether JAS is scientifically better than GAN radar tech.
No, not fundamentally.
It's about control, isn't it? It boils down to who holds the reins.
Precisely.
So are future defense transactions going to be defined less by the platform specs and more by which supplier is willing or maybe forced to concede technological sovereignty to the customer?
That is the question, I think. And the answer to that, as it plays out over the next few years, will likely determine who wins the next generation of global arms deals. It's a major shift.
A really compelling thought to leave everyone with. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material. We appreciate you listening, and we certainly invite you to watch the other deep dives available. If you found this discussion valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the Geostrategic podcast for more in-depth analysis on topics that shape our world. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay tuned for the next episode. See you in the next one.